Citizens of Rome,
All halt, sir. This is madness.
Requis Fibula!
They called him Little Boots. A tiny boy dressed like a soldier, marching among his father's men, his small feet slipping inside the miniature army boots they had made just for him. The soldiers loved him. They lifted him onto their shoulders. They let him pretend to command. He was their mascot, their lucky charm, their proof that even in the brutal world of Roman legions, innocence could still exist. That boy's real name was Gaius. But the name that stuck, the name history would remember, was Caligula, Little Boots. He was born into power. His father was Germanicus, Rome's most beloved general, grandson of the emperor. His mother was Agrippina, granddaughter of the first emperor Augustus. Royal blood flowed through his veins from every direction. The empire was his birthright. But royal blood also meant royal danger. When Caligula was 7 years old, everything changed. His father died suddenly in Antioch. Poison, everyone whispered. The Emperor Tiberius had grown jealous of Germanicus's popularity. The whispers grew louder. But whispers could not bring the dead back to life. Caligula's mother Agrippina was not silent about her suspicions. She accused Tiberius openly. That was her mistake. Tiberius did not argue. He did not defend himself. He simply had her arrested. Exiled. She died on a prison island, starved to death, her mouth nailed shut according to some accounts. She had spoken too much. They made sure she would never speak again. Caligula's brothers were next. One starved himself to death in prison. Another was murdered. The third simply disappeared from history, swallowed by the silence that Rome demanded from those who displeased the emperor. By the time Caligula was a teenager, his entire family was gone. Dead. Exiled. Erased. He alone remained. He alone survived. How does a child survive when everyone around him is killed? He learns to hide. Not in cupboards or behind curtains. He learns to hide inside himself. He learns to smile when he wants to scream. He learns to agree when he wants to argue. He learns to be whatever the powerful want him to be, because being anything else means death. At 19, Caligula was summoned to join Emperor Tiberius on the island of Capri. Tiberius had retreated from Rome years ago, abandoning the capital for a life of isolated luxury and hidden horrors. The island was beautiful. White cliffs, blue water, clear skies. But behind those villa walls, things happened that Romans whispered about for centuries. Tiberius had created his own private hell. Swimming pools where young boys and girls served as entertainment. Gardens where former slaves were tortured for amusement. Dining rooms where guests were slowly poisoned as part of the evening's entertainment. Capri was paradise on the outside. Inside, it was the closest thing to hell on earth. And young Caligula walked right into it. For 6 years, he lived on that island. 6 years watching men and women die for no reason. 6 years learning to laugh at horrors. 6 years smiling at a monster while hiding every true thought behind a mask so perfect that no one ever saw it slip. Tiberius tested him constantly. He would send for Caligula in the middle of the night. He would make him watch terrible things. He would whisper threats and then laugh as if they were jokes. Caligula never broke, never flinched, never showed fear. The old emperor was impressed, perhaps even unnerved. This young man, this survivor, was either completely innocent or completely dangerous. Tiberius could not decide which terrified him more. In 37 AD, Tiberius died. Some said naturally. Some said Caligula helped him along with a pillow. Either way, the nightmare of Capri ended for Caligula. He was 24 years old. He had spent 6 years in hell. And now, impossibly, unbelievably, he was the emperor of Rome. The people rejoiced. They remembered Little Boots, the adorable boy who had marched among the soldiers. They did not know what Capri had done to him. They did not know that the smiling young emperor was wearing a mask so old that even he might have forgotten what lay beneath. For 7 months, Caligula was the perfect ruler. He gave bonuses to soldiers. He lowered taxes. He staged magnificent games. He recalled exiles. He burned Tiberius's secret files so no one could be prosecuted for old grudges. The people loved him. The Senate praised him. Everything was wonderful. Then something broke. Historians still debate what exactly happened. Some say Caligula suffered a terrible illness, a fever that nearly killed him. When he recovered, something in his mind had changed forever. Others say the illness is a myth, and Caligula simply stopped pretending. Perhaps he realized that the mask was exhausting. Perhaps he decided that if everyone feared him, no one could hurt him. Perhaps Capri had finally claimed its victim. Whatever the cause, the change was unmistakable. Caligula began demanding to be treated as a living god. Not just respected, not just honored, worshipped. He ordered temples built in his honor. He insisted that people address him as Jupiter, the king of the gods. He appeared in public dressed as various deities, complete with fake beards and divine accessories. The Roman elite watched in disbelief. Romans worshipped gods. They did not declare themselves gods. The line had never been crossed. Caligula crossed it without looking back. He married his own sister, in public, and celebrated it. When she died, he declared her a goddess and insisted that everyone worship her too. Senators were forced to attend her deification ceremonies. Those who looked uncomfortable were noted. Those who were noted often disappeared. He emptied the treasury on personal whims. A bridge of boats across the Bay of Naples, just so he could ride his horse across the water. 3 massive ships designed as floating palaces, complete with marble columns and heated baths. Parties that lasted days and cost fortunes. When money ran low, Caligula found creative solutions. He invented new taxes on marriages, on prostitution, on the earnings of porters and prostitutes, on food sold in markets. He created a brothel in the palace itself, staffed with noblewomen and their children, and charged admission. The money poured in. The horror poured out. He loved executions. Not quick ones, slow ones. He would sit and watch, eating his dinner, commenting on the technique. Sometimes he would order the executioner to stop halfway, then continue the next day. He said it made the victim suffer twice. He famously wished that the Roman people had a single neck, so he could cut it all at once. The people who heard him say this laughed nervously, hoping it was a joke. It was not a joke. And then there was the horse. His name was Incitatus. It meant swift or fast-moving. And he was, by all accounts, a magnificent animal. A pure white stallion from Spain, famous for its horses. Long mane, intelligent eyes, a presence that made people stop and stare. Caligula loved this horse more than he loved most humans. Perhaps more than any human. The relationship began simply enough. Caligula enjoyed chariot racing, like many Romans. He kept racehorses, like many wealthy Romans. But Incitatus was different. Caligula saw something in this horse. Loyalty, perhaps. Trust. The kind of unwavering devotion he had never found in people. He began spending more time with Incitatus than with his advisors. He would talk to the horse for hours, whispering secrets, sharing thoughts he could share with no one else. The horse listened. The horse did not betray him. The horse did not plot against him. The horse simply stood there, warm and solid and safe. Soon, Incitatus was not just a horse. He was a companion, then a friend, then something more. Caligula built his horse a stable that would have made Roman nobles weep with envy. Marble walls, ivory panels, a manger made of solid ivory, carved with scenes of victory, purple blankets, the color of emperors, embroidered with gold thread, silk sheets for sleeping. He gave the horse furniture, couches to lie on, chairs that no one else could sit in, lamps that burned expensive oil all night so Incitatus would never be in darkness. He gave the horse servants, 18 of them, slaves whose only job was to attend to Incitatus's every need, grooms to brush his coat, stable hands to clean his stall, cooks to prepare his meals, footmen to announce his arrival. He gave the horse jewelry, collars studded with gems, golden anklets, a laurel wreath of pure gold for special occasions. He invited the horse to dinner. Incitatus would stand at the table, wearing his jeweled collar, eating from golden bowls while senators and nobles watched in stunned silence. Caligula would toast his horse. He would ask the horse's opinion on matters. He would laugh at jokes only he and the horse understood. The other guests learned to smile, learned to pretend this was normal, learned to compliment Incitatus on his appearance, his manners, his wisdom. Those who failed to learn did not receive second invitations. But the stable and the servants and the dinner invitations were only the beginning. One day, Caligula made an announcement that left Rome gasping. Incitatus was being appointed to political office, first as a priest, then as a consul, and finally, most incredibly, as a senator. The horse would sit in the Roman Senate. Imagine the scene. The Roman Senate chamber. Marble columns rising toward a vaulted ceiling. Benches arranged in a semicircle. Nearly 1,000 senators in their white togas, the most powerful men in the world, gathered to debate the fate of nations. And in walks a horse. Incitatus enters slowly, his hooves clicking on the marble floor. He is wearing his purple senatorial robe, specially tailored to fit his equine body. His golden collar catches the light. His mane has been brushed until it shines. He looks magnificent, absurd, terrifying. The senators stare. Some cover their mouths. Some look away, afraid that if they meet Caligula's eyes, they will laugh, and laughing means death. Others simply cannot process what they are seeing. A horse. In the Senate. Wearing a toga. Caligula stands at the front, smiling that smile. The smile of a man who has just won a game no one else knew they were playing. I present to you, he announces, my newest colleague, Senator Incitatus. The horse blinks. The senators do not. And here is the detail that makes historians pause. According to some accounts, Caligula did not just make Incitatus a senator as a joke. He had a point to make. A cruel, sharp point. The Senate, Caligula believed, was full of useless men. Men who had inherited their positions. Men who contributed nothing. Men who were, in his eyes, less intelligent, less loyal, less worthy than his horse. By making Incitatus a senator, he was exposing the absurdity of the institution. If a horse could be a senator, what did being a senator actually mean? It was insult wrapped in absurdity wrapped in a joke. The senators understood the insult perfectly. They also understood that objecting would be fatal. So Incitatus became a senator. He attended meetings, according to some accounts. He voted, according to others. Most likely, he stood in his stable while Caligula claimed he was deliberating important matters. But Caligula took it further. He announced that Incitatus would become consul, the highest office in Rome. Only his own death prevented that from happening. The horse had everything. A marble house, 18 servants, a golden collar, a seat in the Senate, a future consulship. All the things that Roman nobles spent their lives scheming and killing to achieve. And he was a horse. That was the point. Why did Caligula do it? Why the horse? Why any of it? The easy answer is madness. Caligula was insane. Simple. Done. But madness is rarely simple. And Caligula's actions, as bizarre as they seem, had a terrible logic. Consider what Caligula had learned in his 24 years. His family had been murdered by people they trusted. His childhood had been stolen by politics. His young adulthood had been spent watching horrors on Capri. Everyone he had ever loved had been taken from him. Everyone he had ever trusted had betrayed him. The only creature that never hurt him, never lied to him, never plotted against him, was a horse. Incitatus was loyal. Incitatus was constant. Incitatus did not want power or money or influence. Incitatus just wanted to be fed and brushed and loved. In a world of scheming senators and treacherous relatives, that simple loyalty must have seemed like a miracle. So Caligula rewarded his horse the only way he knew how. With wealth, with status, with the things that humans valued most. He gave Incitatus everything that people killed for, because the horse was the only being he trusted to deserve it. There is something heartbreaking in that. A man so damaged by human cruelty that he could only love an animal. A man so afraid of betrayal that he surrounded himself with creatures who could not speak. A man who gave a horse a seat in the Senate because no human had ever earned his trust. But there was cruelty in it too. Caligula knew what he was doing to the senators. He knew how it humiliated them. He knew that forcing them to sit beside a horse was 1,000 small assassinations of their dignity. And he enjoyed it. He enjoyed watching them squirm. He enjoyed reminding them that their status meant nothing, that he could give it to anyone, anything, even a horse. The horse was a joke. The joke was on everyone else. But jokes have consequences. And the men who had been humiliated for 4 years were running out of patience. A conspiracy formed. Not among the common people, who still loved Caligula for his games and gifts. Among the elite, the senators who had been forced to worship a horse, the officers who had been mocked and threatened, the men who had everything to lose if Caligula's madness continued. The leader was Cassius Chaerea, a tribune of the Praetorian Guard. He was an old soldier, respected by his men, and Caligula had tormented him mercilessly. He mocked his voice, which was high-pitched. He gave him humiliating passwords to announce to the guard. He treated him with contempt that no soldier should endure. Chaerea planned carefully. He recruited others who had suffered Caligula's cruelty. Men whose wives had been taken. Men whose relatives had been killed. Men who simply wanted the nightmare to end. January 24th, 41 AD. The 4th year of Caligula's reign. The day of the Palatine Games, a festival in honor of the first Emperor Augustus. Caligula arrived at the theater late, as he often did. He had breakfasted lightly. He was in good spirits. He stopped in a narrow underground passage beneath the palace, a corridor that connected the theater to the imperial quarters. There he paused to watch a group of young performers rehearsing. The conspirators were ready. They approached him casually, as if on routine business. Cherio was the first to strike. He came up behind Caligula and asked for the day's password, a standard request. When Caligula turned to answer, Cherio swung his sword and slashed downward. The blow was not fatal. It cut Caligula's jaw and cheekbone, spraying blood across the marble walls. Caligula screamed. He tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. The narrow corridor was crowded with conspirators. The others fell upon him. Sword after sword, stab after stab. 30 wounds in total, some said. Others said more. The man who had made himself a god died like any mortal, bleeding on cold stone, surrounded by men he had once commanded. When it was over, the conspirators fled. Caligula's German bodyguards arrived too late. They found their emperor dead, his body already cooling. In their rage and grief, they killed several innocent people, including a senator who happened to be passing by. The news spread quickly. Caligula was dead. The nightmare was over. But in the chaos that followed, one question arose. What would happen to Incitatus? The new emperor was Claudius, Caligula's uncle. He was considered a fool by many, a stuttering scholar who had survived by seeming harmless. But Claudius was not stupid. He understood that the horse was a symbol. What he did with that symbol would send a message. Some accounts say Incitatus was quietly retired. His marble stable was taken away. His servants were reassigned. His golden collar was melted down. He was sent to live out his days in a normal field, a normal horse at last. Others say he was killed, that the new regime wanted no reminders of the mad emperor, that the horse who had been a senator was simply erased. We do not know for certain. The historical records are silent on Incitatus's fate. He appears in the story, and then he disappears, leaving only questions behind. Perhaps that is fitting. The horse who was raised above humans returned to being just a horse. The symbol was gone. The reality remained. So what do we make of this story? A mad emperor, a horse in the Senate, 18 servants, marble stables, ivory mangers. It sounds like fiction, like something from a dark fairy tale. But it happened. All of it happened. The story of Caligula and his horse is not really about a horse. It is about power, about what happens when power has no limits, about what happens when a person can do anything and no one can stop them. Caligula did not make his horse a senator because he loved horses. He did it because he could, because the power to do something absurd proved that his power was absolute, because forcing senators to bow to a horse was the ultimate humiliation of an institution he despised. But the story is also about trauma, about what happens to a child who watches his family murdered, about what happens to a young man who spends years in a living hell, about what happens when survival requires hiding every true feeling behind a perfect mask. Caligula was not born a monster. He was made one. By fear, by loss, by a world that taught him that love meant death and trust meant betrayal, by 6 years on an island where horror was entertainment, by a lifetime of watching the people he loved disappear. The horse was the only creature he trusted, and in a life full of betrayal, that trust was precious. The Roman Empire lasted for over 1,000 years. It produced great leaders and terrible ones, wise philosophers and brutal tyrants. But perhaps no image from that long history sticks in the mind quite like this one. A horse in the Senate, wearing purple, being treated like a god. It makes us laugh. It makes us shudder. It makes us wonder what we would do if we had that kind of power. Incitatus the horse lived and died without knowing any of this. He did not know he was a senator. He did not understand the games being played around him. He was just a horse, loved by a broken man, given gifts he could not comprehend. And maybe that is the most human thing of all. Giving love where it can be safely given. Trusting where trust is possible. Finding, in a world full of danger, one creature who will never hurt you. Caligula found that in a horse. The rest of us are still looking.